we heard that ABC wanted a medical show. So that's where Grey's Anatomy came from. The actual selling of the script so she could write it was not too difficult. Every step after that was hell. The first big hurdle was, okay, the script comes in and our executives really like it and it moves up the food chain and everyone's nervous. I think that there were co-presidents of ABC at that point, and it was a gentleman and then a woman named Susan Line. And I remember we were on the bubble. Every other pilot had been picked up. Shonda and I went in and we prepared this whole thing about why we were relevant. And I'd read this article in the New York Times about working women. And I just threw as much bullshit at the wall to see if it would stick. And the great thing was, and it was sort of like why it's relevant. And I think she saw our passion. And I think Susan Line's a really, really smart woman, and she's still a really smart woman. I still want to thank you for everything she did, but she gave us a shot because she saw these two hot and bothered people who really had something to say in an environment in which that was not actually always the norm. So that was hell, but it was okay because she was nice, and we did a whole like presentation with pictures and stuff. And then we filmed it. And what I will say about ABC was, I remember everybody was very, very open to the casting that we insisted on, which is if you read the original script of Grey's Anatomy, nobody's described. I mean, nobody's described with any kind of age describers, gender,
Mhm.
race, sexual orientation. It's like, with the exception of that, that Meredith and Derek have sex in the beginning. But it was a very conscious thing that I think is to both of us. It was important that we could create a world and a hospital that really looked like a hospital. And we would laugh and go like, hey, did you ever go into a hospital and all there is white dudes? Is what I would say. Like, I don't just know. So they were great. And there was never an issue in terms of that. So we were able to cast it, but because we were like the little engine that could. We were the last pilot to be picked up. We ended up with a wonderful director who we'd known, Linda Lowy, who turned into our casting director for 500 years. Didn't really do TV very much, but she fell in love with the script. We ended up, and she knew Sandra Oh, so it was sort of like, okay, we're just going to like build this little house. And so we shot the pilot, and that's a whole other long story, and did the whole thing. And then we were the last show to be picked up for series. And the advertisers, I remember, gave us like 5 out of 10 or something. But it was funny. It was sort of like Susan Line, I think, I'm still going to give her credit. I think it got down to the wire, and she just was sort of like, I think this gets a shot. It's a shot. It's a different voice. Now, remember that this is the season of Desperate Housewives and of Lost. So those shows were sparkly and fabulous, and they knew it from the beginning, and everybody was just like panting like animals because those shows were so great and blah, blah, blah. And so the funny thing was we went off to make, our half order of 12 episodes plus a pilot, and we kind of faded into the distance, and they didn't give us very much money. And so we kind of just went off in a corner and made the show after an initial couple of bumps in the road, very little interference. And they decided to put us on, I think it was like Easter Sunday in 2005, I think, and the 10 o'clock slot in the Boston legal slot, I think it was. And everybody was pretty confident, or a lot of people were confident, that we wouldn't survive the night. And the joke was we woke up the next morning and all these people had watched the show. And I didn't know how to read ratings, but I pretended I knew how to read ratings. We get the ratings, and the only ratings I understand are like from the 90s, like because my friends did TV. So I think we did terribly. So I call Sean and I go, like, I'm really sorry. These are terrible. She goes, it's so weird. My phone's ringing. Like, I don't know where my phone's ringing. I was like, I know it's so terrible. And it was everybody going like, you don't understand. Like, all these people watched your show. And it kept kind of building from there.